What does Zillow actually want? The reason why it matters is because Zillow is one of those companies, kind of like Apple or Tesla or Facebook, where when it announces something, when it makes a change, it changes the whole industry. And it's all over the news, everybody's talking about it, and so I figured I'd give my 50 cents.
I want to see you smile, baby.
Let's start first with what we know. We know that Zillow is the largest search engine if you're looking to buy homes in the United States. Does that make them the best? Well, that's up for debate, but what it does make them is what we would call an industry leader. I just noticed you can't actually see my quotes, and I probably wasn't even doing real quotes because my hand's still broke. Zillow is bleeding houses, hundreds of them, and they're selling all of these houses in Austin, Atlanta, Houston, Phoenix, and more. And one of the crazy things is, and there's a lot of data out there, there are people that are saying that Zillow is selling these houses for a third less than what they themselves paid for them. So what does that mean? Well, it means that 7,000 houses have to be sold at a
market discount.
Zillow has to pay attention to its shareholders. And so now you're looking at profitability. And so in their earnings call, it wasn't good. And unfortunately, this is going to result in like 25% of the staff layoff. I also think it's important to understand what iBuying is, because that's the part that's having the difficulty. It's basically Zillow saying, hey, listen, I know you've got this house. We're going to buy it from you and make everything easy. And then we're going to sell it ourselves. But then when the Zillow CEO announced this, he basically said, you know, those estimates, yeah, we were guessing. So all these home sellers and homeowners that are looking at these estimates and other Zillow data, now it's like all up in the air. You don't know who to trust. And there are YouTube channels out there that like use Zillow for their data, but that's none of my business. Okay, so if you didn't already see it, I'm going to play this short clip with the Zillow CEO.
So let's talk about exiting the Zillow Homes business and the home flipping as we just described it as. Is this a sort of full-scale admission that you should never have gone into that business line in the first place?
You know, us realtors, we have like a community, and it's funny because a lot of us really didn't like Zillow from the beginning, and it's because of the whole algorithm versus relationship thing. In fact, one of the people I follow on Instagram, shout out Broke Agent, they just posted something from a gentleman named Don Lowe, and it states, real estate will never be valued accurately by algorithms. Real estate is local, emotional, and subjective. Agents will not become a thing of the past. And what's so interesting about that is if you've ever purchased or sold a home, you would know that. I've personally helped lots of people buy or sell a home, and I'll tell you, it's 95% of it is emotional if they're not like an investor or something or dealing with commercial. So in residential, it is if you're buying your home, you're looking at schools or crime data or how it better helps your situation. Do you have to travel for work? That's still kind of emotional, right? It's not just data driven. And it's kind of the same thing on the other end. If you're selling your house, I never or rarely see a happy seller. Like that's just not how it works. You know, you've made memories in this house, or you're not making as much as you want to make, or there's always something to it, right? But it is still emotional, and algorithms, it's going to be a long while before they can really figure that out. Okay, so going back to the topic, which is what does Zillow want? Now we have to ask the questions, why did Zillow stop buying? They messed up, they spent too much money, and they basically took a gamble on what they thought the pandemic was going to cause home prices to do, which it did. So they bought the dip, but they forgot to set their limit to sell. No. And then the follow-up question is, will that be a trend with other iBuyer platforms, such as like Redfin, Opendoor, Orchard, or any of these other companies that are offering to buy your home and giving you an actual fair market value, not less for your home, but actually giving you a good amount so that you don't have to deal with it. And then let's talk about the workforce. So they're laying off 25%. Here's what they're not talking about. They're not talking about all of the realtors that relied on Zillow, not just for data, but for actual leads. I don't know if you know this, but Zillow, the way they make money is by selling your information to other realtors. Now, I don't buy Zillow leads, but I know that there are a lot of agents, especially if they're starting out in their industry and they don't know anybody. Let's say they've just relocated there or they haven't established a business. Well, they need to rely on that. And so that's going to cut a lot of realtors out of the game, I think. And then you have to think about some of these sellers. There were a handful of sellers that were waiting, and now they're like, okay, we should probably do this. And maybe they were banking on Zillow actually buying their homes from them. Or even worse, what if they were using the Zestimate as a guide, as a gauge for what they should list their home for? And in the Austin market right now, you're actually seeing a fair amount of housing that is sitting on the market for slightly longer than it should be. And so if a seller comes in and is like, no, my house, sure, it's worth 500,000, but I might be able to get 750 because Zillow said so. Well, who do you think that's going to work out for, really? So now think about the local impact that all these houses that Zillow has sitting on the market, and now they're playing with the price. And another thing I see a lot of people glossing over is actually answering the question why Zillow can sell homes for less. Well, now is probably a really good time for them to do what they're doing because we're at the end of a fiscal year, so they can use that for whatever write-offs they need. And then going back to their revenue model, they make money just by selling leads to agents. And so if they have a ton of inventory, they've been making money this whole time. So if they're making $5,000 a year off of each agent in a market, and let's say there's 100 agents that are buying in this market, that $10,000 or $20,000 difference that they would be or could be losing because they didn't sell the house here, that does not matter to them. Really, it doesn't. And then when you actually look at the houses, a lot of them, they never actually did anything to the house. They just bought it and they were like, let's just put it back on the market for more. But the traditional method is people would like make repairs and fix things up or negotiate the price so that they can sell it and get the price that it's worth. And so I have to ask again, what does Zillow want? So I know you're not in this situation, but let's say you were, right? Like, let's say you were the CEO of Zillow. What would you do? Like, what is it that Zillow wants? And if you're like, yeah, well, Zillow's been lying, it's good they're caught, then go ahead and click that like button for me to show support. So with this news, the logical next question, if you're in the buyer's hot seat and you're like, man, I need to take action, I need to buy a house, or should I wait and there might be a crash or a fire sale or whatever it is, what do I do? Lucky for you, I addressed that exact point in our last Real Amigos podcast, right here. That brings me to an interesting point. You know, I'm curious, like, what other things can I do, can I share with you that you feel will improve this channel? I want to make sure I'm releasing content that actually benefits you as a potential buyer, seller, relocator, investor, any of that. And I do try to respond and keep an eye on all of my comments, whether it's here on YouTube or at ianofAustin on Instagram or on TikTok. And it gives me an opportunity to share my voice with people that want to listen. With the end goal, of course, of making a positive impact on people's lives. You know, I already do this for a living, but how cool is it to be able to, you know, share what you do and share your experiences with people that you know that it might help in the future. So all that to say, thank you for watching, and I will catch you in the next video.